Welcome to 5 Good Minutes.
You're listening to today's inspirational message on the book of Daniel
With Brady Randall.
My guess is that most of us listening today have heard the phrase, the writing was on the wall. And that phrase comes to us from our text today in Daniel 5. When people say that the writing was on the wall, what they usually mean is that some doom or misfortune is about to take place, and we should have noticed it sooner. Again, here's, I think, where this originates here in Daniel 5, and we'll be reading verses 5 and 9. It says this, "Suddenly the fingers of a human hand appeared and wrote on the plaster of the wall near the lampstand in the royal palace. The king watched the hand as it wrote. His face turned pale, and he was so frightened that his legs became weak and his knees were knocking. The king summoned the enchanters, astrologers, and diviners. Then he said to these wise men of Babylon, 'Whoever reads this writing and tells me what it means will be clothed in purple. They will have a gold chain placed around his neck, and he will be made the third highest ruler in the kingdom.' Then all the king's wise men came in, but they could not read the writing or tell the king what it meant. So King Belshazzar became even more terrified, and his face became more pale. His nobles were baffled." Again, imagine this scene that's taking place. Everyone is getting tipsy. They're drinking from the vessels that had been used in the temple. They're praising other gods, and suddenly, in the midst of this idolatrous feast, fingers of a human hand appeared and wrote on the plaster of the wall near the lampstand. And I don't know what you would think or feel when this happened. My guess is that the party goers were wondering, what in the world is going on here? Have I had too much to drink? Am I really seeing this for myself? Human fingers writing on a wall? That's crazy. We know from the text that these fingers, this writing, came from God because in verses 23 and 24 of Daniel 5, it says this, "You have set yourself up against the Lord of heaven. You had the goblets from his temple brought to you, and your nobles, your wives, and your concubines drank wine from them. You praised the God of silver and gold and bronze, iron, wood, and stone, which cannot see or hear or understand. But you did not honor God, who holds in his hand your very life and all of your ways." I love that editorial note there. It says that you're praising gods who couldn't even hear you. They can't see, they can't understand, and yet you're praising them, and not the one true God, the one who's now visiting you. Now, Belshazzar knew that something real was up because he began to get pale, and he was shaky in the knees. I don't know if you ever had one of those moments that you thought you were getting away with something, or maybe something gnawed at you in your conscience, something you thought, I really shouldn't be doing this, but you just set it aside. And then all of a sudden, you're caught. Uh-oh, here comes the reckoning. And the big takeaway for me in this section is that God ends up speaking through this writing. And the question for them who were reading the writing or saw the writing happening, and really for us is this, is when God speaks, will we listen? This is a play on words in verse 24. It says, God holds you in his hand, your life and your ways. And now he sent this hand, quote unquote, to give you a message on the wall. It's not enough to acknowledge that God has spoken. The real question is, will we listen? Will we listen when he speaks a word of judgment or warning against us like he's doing here in Daniel 5? And at times we may not like what God has said. Or we wish he'd said something else. Or we take what he said and we begin to twist and turn the text to say, almost like what the serpent did in Genesis chapter 3, where he says, did God really say? But we would be wise not just to acknowledge that he has spoken, but to heed what it is that he said. For we don't have a God who simply thunders from on high, but a God who entered our world into brokenness and mess through Jesus Christ. God does bring warning and judgment, not to restrict us, but because he loves us. But make no mistake, God will bring about the judgment that he has promised. either on the cross of Christ if you've received him as your Lord and your Savior, or he will punish us for sinning against him, for it is a dreadful thing to fall into the hands of a living God. And so today, if you hear this, heed his voice, for now is the time of God's favor. Now is the time of salvation for all who put their hope in him.
Thanks for joining us here today. There's a lot of great content to explore on Orchard Hill Plus and on the Orchard Hill main feed from the weekend. Have a great day.